The year is 2050. Today's my 25th birthday, but I'm not exactly blowing out candles on a cake. Instead, I'm somewhere in the middle of the Milky Way galaxy, fighting a war one never even knew existed, a war I certainly never asked to be a part of. Back on Earth, life goes on as normal. Nobody knows about this cosmic battle raging for our very survival. My name is Jack. To my family and friends, I just vanished 10 years ago. They probably think I'm dead. The truth is, I was taken. Kidnapped by a shadowy U.S. government agency with secret ties to something called the Kaelum Guard. They didn't ask me to join. They conscripted me. Now, I fight for all of humanity, a soldier in a galactic war that's been tearing apart the Milky Way and beyond. This is my story. Have you ever wondered if there's more to our universe than we know? I found out the hard way. One moment, I was living a normal life, and the next, I was a prisoner of the Kaelum Guard. They weren't interested in ransom. They had other plans for me. They pushed me into a program, something they called the Super Soldier Program. It wasn't about training. It was about changing who I was at a genetic level. They told me they were augmenting my genome, waking up dormant genes that every human has, but aren't supposed to be active for thousands of years. They were fast-tracking evolution, forcing my body to advance. And the reason for all this? They wanted to pair me with something incredible, something alive. A sentient, special armored suit. This wasn't just my story. It was the beginning of humanity's next chapter. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to become more than human? For us, it's not a choice. It's a calling. We walk among these living armored suits, waiting to be chosen. You can't force it. If you try to wear a suit that hasn't picked you, it will end you. It's a nerve-wracking procession, walking that line, hoping one will respond. When a suit finally chooses you, it starts to vibrate, a low hum you feel in your very bones. That's your signal. You step inside, and the melding begins. It's the most terrifying and painful experience imaginable, a storm of agony that feels like it will tear you apart. But it's necessary. Once the process is complete, you and the suit are one, neurologically linked for eternity. You're stronger, faster, forever changed. It's a heavy price for power, but a price we must pay to survive. Have you ever heard of the Kaelum Guard? They're a human civilization, just like us, that blossomed right here in the Milky Way for thousands of years. But they didn't stop there. They grew, they learned, and they expanded across the universe, reaching into other galaxies. At first, they were purely scientific, dedicated to unlocking the mysteries of the cosmos. During this time, the whole universe was watched over by a mysterious ancient race known as the Old Guard. As millennia passed and the Kaelum Guard's knowledge grew, the Old Guard made a monumental decision. They chose to pass the sacred duty of protection to humanity. Once this mantle was transferred, the Old Guard began to vanish. No one knows where they went. They had appeared at the dawn of time, and just as mysteriously, they were gone. What happened to them remains one of the greatest unanswered questions. No one knew their species' name, and even if they did, no one could pronounce it. Some whispered they came from the very edge of the universe. Others claimed they were the spirits of old. Me? I believe they descended from the heavens to protect all life. But in the end, it doesn't really matter. Time passed after the mantle was passed to the Kaelum Guard, and a fragile peace reigned across the galaxies. Then, at some point, no one really knows when an unknown alien species arrived. We had no idea where they came from, or what to call them. The first warnings came as fragmented reports from merchant ships and lone freighters passing through a remote region of space, describing something truly terrifying. Space is vast, dark, and full of wonders, but also full of terrors. In the outer fringes of charted territory, a Kaelum Guard survey vessel was doing its routine work, mapping, exploring, documenting the unknown. Suddenly, their sensors lit up. A massive fleet materialized from the void. The ships were unlike anything they had ever seen, pitch black, absorbing the light of distant stars, their design both alien and menacing. The crew of the survey ship, frozen for a moment in awe and fear, knew they were outmatched. They scrambled to send a warning, a desperate cry for help. "We are under attack by an unknown race," the message read. Before they could even open a wormhole for instantaneous transmission, their systems failed. The message, a digital ghost, was cast adrift into the cosmic sea, floating through space and time until, by sheer chance, it was picked up by a long-range communications satellite. Only then did the warning finally reach the heart of the Kaelum Guard. By the time the cryptic message finally reached the Council, it was already too late. Deep in the uncharted sectors of the galaxy, a mysterious alien species had established a foothold. The transmission was garbled, filled with static and panic, but the warning was clear. An emergency meeting was immediately called. The air in the council chamber was thick with tension as they debated the single chilling message. In the end, the decision was unanimous. They had to act. A task force was assembled, comprised of the fleet's finest ships and bravest crews. Their mission: investigate the fate of the lost vessel and confront this unknown threat. It would take them 2 long weeks to cross the vast expanse of space. For the Council, and indeed the entire galaxy, all they could do now was hold their breath and nervously wait for what was to come. After 3 long weeks of searching, the task force finally located the mysterious alien ships. Now came the hard part. The Council wanted a peaceful first contact, not a full-blown war started by a show of overwhelming force. The decision fell to the Rear Admiral. Which ship should make the initial approach? He had plenty of options. A battleship? Too aggressive. That would send the wrong message entirely, like showing up to a handshake with a loaded gun. A destroyer? Maybe, but still a bit too much like a pure warship. In the end, he opted for a cruiser. It was the perfect middle ground. The cruiser sent a clear message: we come in peace, and we hope for a diplomatic solution. But it also carried an unspoken warning. Don't mistake our desire for peace as weakness. If you push us into a corner, we have teeth, and we will fight back. The Rear Admiral relayed his plan to the fleet. Immediately, one cruiser captain volunteered for first contact. His request was granted. The rest of the task force took cover behind a nearby star, its intense radiation acting as a perfect cloak against any potential scans from the unknown species. As the lone cruiser approached the target coordinates, the captain transmitted a simple message, initiating first contact. Everyone in the task force held their breath, waiting. The silence was shattered by an automated distress call from the cruiser, sending a cold chill down the Rear Admiral's spine. All ships full impulse. He commanded. Head for the cruiser's last known position. As the task force broke from behind the star, they were met with a terrifying sight: a massive armada of alien ships. The battle was immediate and brutal. As his own ship took withering fire, the Rear Admiral yelled into his comms, "Star come, get this message out. We have met the enemy, and diplomacy has failed. Requesting immediate reinforcements." Starcom's message arrived just in the nick of time. The battle was swift and brutal. Although the task force was completely destroyed, they achieved one critical objective before their end. During the conflict, they managed to scan the enemy ships, bundling that precious data with their final distress call back to the Kaelum Guard. It took 2 agonizing days for the message to cross the void and reach the Council. As they reviewed the scans, the weight of the situation settled in. One Council member posed the ultimate question: do we risk an entire fleet now, or do we quarantine them, biding our time to develop new weapons specifically designed to counter this threat? They debated. They weighed every option, every possible outcome. The discussion was tense, the stakes impossibly high. Finally, a consensus was reached. They would not wait. They agreed to send a fleet. The council agreed a fleet had to be sent, but they were hesitant to commit their newest and most powerful ships. As they reviewed their assets, a solution became apparent. The second fleet, the smallest in their entire force, was already positioned nearby. The cold calculus was simple. Losing the second fleet wouldn't be a strategic crisis. So the order was sent. The admiral of the second fleet received the message, instructing him to bring his ships to full battle readiness. As a small consolation, he was promised the latest prototype vessel and a contingent of scientific research ships. While his crews were eager to jump to the last known coordinates of the missing task force, the admiral was more cautious. He acknowledged the orders, and throughout the fleet, the klaxons began to blare. The mission was on. A frantic energy surged through the starship as the call to arms echoed across every deck. Everyone, from the newest recruit to the seasoned veteran, scrambled to their stations, a silent understanding passing between them. The second fleet was activating, a move that sent ripples of shock and anticipation throughout the ranks. The Kaelum Guards were beating the drums of war, a sound not heard in over a century. For the younger generations, fear was a cold knot in their stomachs. This was the stuff of legends, not their reality. But the old guard, faces etched with the memory of past conflicts, offered steady reassurance. "This will be quick," they'd say, their voices a low rumble of confidence. "We have the ships, the firepower, the training. We'll hit them hard, and they'll sue for peace." It's how it's always been. A small calm settled over the fleet, the wisdom of the elders, a shield against the unknown. The second fleet was battle-ready. Ground troops, battle wings, all loaded and secured. The fleet radio crackled to life, signaling their readiness to high command. Moments later, the council gave their blessings. With that, the massive fleet began its slow, deliberate departure, engines flaring as they charted a course for the target star system. The future was a complete unknown, but their determination was absolute. As the ship slipped into hyperspace, heading for the last known position of the Lost Task Force, the Admiral's voice echoed through every vessel. "We are heading into an unknown situation. A small task force was sent to make first contact. We have lost all communication. We must assume the worst." His voice was grim but steady. "We don't know the size or disposition of the force we may encounter. Stand to your duties. I cannot promise that I will bring you all home alive, but dead or alive, we will come home together." After the speech, a nervous calm settled over the fleet. The realization that we might be going into battle began to overwhelm the crew of each ship. There wasn't any extra conversation between anyone. It was mostly a structured silence. Throughout the entire trip, every shift stood to their duties, nervously going over every system once, then again. Every single department on the ships also went through all of their battle drills, making absolutely sure that they were ready. The air was thick with a tension you could almost touch, a silent hum of anticipation and anxiety. Everyone was lost in their own thoughts, preparing for what was to come. Then finally, we were down to 1 day left in hyperspace. The final countdown had begun, and the weight of the coming conflict pressed down on us all. The Admiral gave the order. Anyone not on duty was to take personal time. Rest up, be ready. We had no idea what we were getting into, or when we'd get a break like this again. The ship hummed with a strange mix of calm and tension. Some folks just laid in their racks, staring at the metal ceiling just inches from their face. Others, unable to sit still, ran drills or played cards, trying to enjoy the camaraderie. You could feel the nervous energy buzzing. A few paced the decks like caged animals, while others burned off steam in the gym. And then there were those of us who found our peace in the armory. I was one of them. I sat there, methodically checking my armored suit, cleaning my weapons, feeling the cool, familiar weight of the steel in my hands. It was the only thing that felt real. Every time someone walked past, I couldn't help but wonder if I'd ever see them again. It's a horrible, morbid thought, I know, but you can't help thinking about it in a place like this. Still, life has to go on. So I just kept my head down and focused on my gear, checking and rechecking every connection, every power cell. And then that day finally came. The Admiral's voice echoed over the comms, ordering us out of hyperspace. Set condition 1 throughout the ship. Battle stations. The alarms began to scream, the klaxons blared, and the corridors filled with people running to their posts. The ship shuddered, a familiar lurch, and then we exited hyperspace. Right into the heart of it all. We dropped out of hyperspace, right on the far side of the star, exactly where the task force was supposed to be hiding. The Admiral's voice crackled over the comms, ordering a full sensor sweep of the area. The results came back. Empty. Just a wall of static and the vast, silent darkness. Something felt wrong. The Admiral didn't hesitate. He commanded the entire fleet to reposition. A slow, cautious crawl around the star's blinding corona. As we rounded the far side, the ship shuddered violently. Alarms blared. We weren't hit by an enemy, but by debris. The long-range sensors snapped into focus, and the horrifying truth painted itself across our screens. We were floating in a graveyard, the mangled remains of our own task force. Twisted metal and the frozen, silent shapes of bodies, adrift in the endless black. They were all gone. The Admiral ordered our flight wings to launch for cover and reconnaissance. Then he commanded the entire fleet to scan for survivors and any sign of the enemy. Every ship began actively searching the debris field. We weren't sure if we should be relieved or terrified, but at least we finally knew what happened to the lost task force. Eventually, the scans completed. The results were chilling. No one was alive, not even bacteria. Everything was dead, completely sterilized. It was deeply concerning. Just then, one of the fighter wings reported in, their voice crackling with excitement over the comms. They'd found a lone alien ship, just sitting there in orbit of a nearby moon, undetected until they were right on top of it. The pilot's transmission was clear. Tally-ho! Discovered one craft in orbit. The Admiral demanded a description, but the pilot struggled to explain the bizarre vessel. Frustrated, the Admiral ordered the science ships forward to begin scanning this mysterious craft. The Admiral's command echoed through the bridge. All ships full ahead to the moon's orbit. The fleet surged forward, a silent behemoth entering the graveyard of what was once our task force. Our journey became a slow, cautious crawl through a field of twisted metal and shattered hulls. The sounds were unnerving, a constant symphony of clanking and booming as debris scraped along our outer hull. Every now and then, a soft, sickening thud would break the metallic chorus. Was it just a smaller piece of wreckage, or was it a body? The thought sent a chill down my spine. It felt like we were navigating through ghosts. Finally, we emerged from the debris field into clear space, only to be met by a single ominous craft hanging silently in the void. All ships halt, the Admiral ordered. We just stared at it on the main view screen. A collective breath held. Then the Admiral's voice, firm and clear, broke the silence. Open all channels. The comms officer's voice crackled, confirming the channel was open. The Admiral strode forward on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the menacing, unknown craft hanging in the void before his battle fleet. He drew a steadying breath, his voice resonating with quiet authority across the stars. This is the Admiral of the Kaelum Guard. You have entered protected space. We are the guardians of this galaxy, and you have come uninvited. More than that, you have deliberately and without provocation attacked our first contact fleet. This aggression will not stand. We demand an explanation. How say you? The silence that followed was heavy, a prelude to a storm that could engulf entire worlds. The fate of civilizations now rested on the next transmission. A few agonizing minutes passed. Then, in broken, crackling English, the alien craft sent back a message. A message that would end all hope. It said, "We are the Ramarsi. You must die." And just like that, the alien ship vanished. It never broke orbit, never moved. It just disappeared. Gone. The suddenness took everyone by surprise. A stunned silence fell over the bridge. A sense of dread hung heavy in the air. One of the bridge members mumbled, just loud enough for the Admiral to hear, "What are they?" The Admiral, stern and steadfast, shot back without a moment's hesitation. "We don't care what they are. We just need to know where to hit them." The first war for humanity's survival had just begun. The Admiral contacted the science vessels. He asked if they could see the craft and determine what it was. The lead science vessel replied, "We're reviewing all data. We should have an answer within the hour." The Admiral acknowledged, then ordered Starcom to contact the Council. When the channel opened, the Admiral reported, "The Second Fleet is at the enemy position. It's a scene of complete destruction. The task force was found. They were annihilated." He continued, "We also discovered a lone enemy ship and managed to make contact." A council member immediately asked, "What did they say?" The Admiral hesitated for a moment. The message was, "We are the Ramarsi. You must die. End all hope." He paused, then finished his report. And then the alien ship just vanished. This is just the beginning of the story. The council member looked the Admiral dead in the eye and asked, "Did you lay in a pursuit course after this craft?" The Admiral's response was chilling. He said, "Sir, I don't think you understand. We couldn't lay in a pursuit course. It never broke orbit. It just vanished. It disappeared." This stunned the council member into silence. After a moment, he leaned forward and asked, "Is there any way of finding out where they went? Or even who they are?" The Admiral was at a complete loss. He simply replied, "Sir, at this point, no. We don't know how to respond to this." The council member acknowledged his answer, then gave a final, haunting order. "Stay out there and keep investigating." The Admiral gave a slight nod, and the communication channel went silent. He let out a long, slow breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. That was over. For now. A wave of relief washed over him, but it was quickly replaced by a sense of urgent purpose. Now the real work begins. The investigation. This was their best chance, maybe their only chance, to figure out where this mysterious alien species had vanished to. If they could just find them, maybe, just maybe, they could force them to the negotiation table and end this conflict once and for all. He switched his comms to a secure channel. "Scientific vessel, status report," he commanded, his voice firm. A moment of static, then a reply. "Still analyzing, Admiral. The data is ... complex. We're sifting through everything as fast as we can." The Admiral stared out at the star-dusted void. The wait was just beginning. The Admiral's voice crackled through the comms, his patience wearing thin. 25,000 ships are sitting idle, he barked, waiting for you to tell us where to go. Do you get the point? On the other end, the lead scientist tried to remain calm. "Sir, we understand. We're working as fast as we can, but the equipment has its limits." A heavy sigh from the Admiral. "Just get it done. We lost an entire task force. Hundreds of thousands of lives. Someone needs to pay for that." The scientist simply nodded, his face grim. "Understood, Admiral." The channel went silent, leaving only the hum of the lab and the immense weight of their task. After the Admiral's briefing, the gravity of the situation finally sank in for the lead scientist. He promised they would redouble their efforts, working faster and harder than ever before. With a solemn thank you, the Admiral ended the transmission. He immediately turned to his communications officer, ordering, "Starcom, get me the Council now." A moment later, The faces of the council members appeared on the main screen. The Admiral quickly brought them up to speed. As he finished, they exchanged grim looks, the weight of the new information settling upon them. Then, one council member spoke up. "Admiral," she said, her voice heavy, "we've been consulting with the elder races of the Milky Way. The Ramarsi. They were one of the original species of this galaxy. They were explorers who left on generational ships, seeking the very edge of the universe." She paused. "It took them eons to return, but those who did, they were changed. They couldn't explain how, only that they were no longer the same. Those Ramarsi who returned from their exploration, they were different. The people who welcomed them back said they weren't the same. And strangely, the Ramarsi who never left, they started changing too. Eventually, every single one of them just vanished, and we've never heard from them since. What did they encounter out there? Or was this something they did to themselves? That's been the extent of our knowledge for years, until today." Just as the Admiral was deep in a meeting with the Council, a scientist frantically called in. The Admiral, a bit annoyed, cut him off, reminding him of the importance of the meeting. The scientist apologized, pausing for a moment. But one council member kindly urged him to speak. He stumbled over his words at first, but then, after collecting himself, he said it. He said, "Yes, we think we found them. Or at least, where they went." The scientist paused for a moment. The Admiral, growing impatient, urged him on. "Okay, Doc, go ahead. We're all waiting." "Where did they go?" The scientist finally looked up from his data. "They went to the Helios galaxy. Admiral, we found a biosignature, but it's not a natural phenomenon. It's definitely some type of residual engine residue." He continued, his voice a mix of awe and concern. "The results indicate these are bioform ships. They could be fully biological or a hybrid of organic and mechanical parts. What's truly baffling is their ability to absorb all types of radiation. We're not sure if this is just a byproduct, or if they need it maybe for power, or even to hold their cellular structure together. It defies everything we know. All organic cells are harmed by radiation, yet somehow this material isn't. It's completely unharmed. So how does this help us?" The Admiral's voice was tense. The chief scientist pointed at the screen, explaining that our energy-based weapons won't even scratch their shields. "So what will work?" "Kinetic weapons," the scientist replied, "solid rounds. Our plasma cannons might also be effective." The Admiral nodded grimly. "All right, make way to the Helios galaxy. Let's go hunting." The Council promised another fleet, and the Admiral thanked them before opening a channel to the entire fleet. All ships plot a course for the Helios galaxy. One by one, each warship vanished into hyperspace, leaving the Milky Way behind. We don't know where we're going, what we'll find, or when we'll be back. I just pray this is a quick battle, that we can avenge our fallen and return home. Because if we fail, the Ramarsi will come back with a vengeance, and everyone will pay the price. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more. Phantom Static, where the phantoms speak through the static.